Creativity is one of the most mysterious qualities of the human mind. It is a force that has shaped our tools, our stories, our cities, and the course of our evolution. Yet, when most people hear the word creativity, they imagine something rare, a gift bestowed on a select few, a spark of genius that arrives only in the minds of artists, inventors, and prodigies. We speak of creativity as if it belongs to someone else, as if it lies outside the everyday life of ordinary people. Tonight, we explore a different truth, a more honest and more beautiful truth. Creativity is not a rare talent. It is not a fortunate accident of genetics. It is not an exclusive club reserved for painters or poets or scientists. Creativity is a biological capacity that every human is born with. It is a psychological process that can be strengthened through practice. It is a philosophical mystery that reveals who we are when we imagine something that has never existed before. Take a slow breath if you would like to. Not as a command, just as a gentle invitation to settle into this moment. The next hours will unfold like a journey, slow, deep, expansive. A journey into the origins of creativity in the brain, the emotions, the culture, and the human spirit. Creativity is often described as the ability to make something new. But novelty is only a small part of the story. The deeper truth is that creativity comes from how the brain forms connections, how memories meet, how ideas blend, how intuition arises, how errors become insights. Creativity is the mind learning to see itself from new angles. It is the organism reorganizing its own internal world. For thousands of years, the greatest thinkers have asked where creativity comes from. They wondered whether it is a divine gift, a biological feature, a psychological skill, or some kind of cosmic whisper. Philosophers have proposed that creativity is the closest humans ever come to touching the infinite. Neuroscientists describe it as a conversation between networks inside the brain. Psychologists frame it as a set of habits, attitudes, and mental movements. Anthropologists see it in the stories, symbols, and tools our ancestors left behind. Yet across all these perspectives, one theme remains constant. Creativity is universal. Every human mind possesses it. You are creative. You have always been creative, even in moments when you felt blocked, even in moments when your ideas seemed small or ordinary. Creativity is not a switch that turns on or off. It is a living process that shifts with attention, emotion, environment, and experience. Let yourself breathe softly again, if that feels comfortable. Allow the shoulders to loosen a little. This is a documentary-style exploration, but it is also an invitation to rest into the rhythm of ideas. There is no need to focus intensely or to analyze every detail. The mind will absorb what it absorbs. Insights will arise naturally. Creativity begins long before humans began painting on cave walls or shaping tools from stone. It begins with the brain's fundamental architecture. Millions of neurons firing in patterns that constantly reshape themselves. Every thought is a combination. Every idea is a recombination. Creativity is the mind's natural tendency to experiment with itself. We will travel through many landscapes tonight. The myth of talent, the networks of the creative brain, the strange moment when ideas are born from silence, the methods that strengthen creative thinking, the psychology of mood and curiosity, the environment that nourishes imagination, the long arc of human evolution, and the tools that carried creativity across generations, the philosophical nature of originality, the future of creativity in the age of artificial intelligence, and finally, a quiet reflection on living a creative life. As we begin, you may notice the breath settling, thoughts slowing, a sense of soft curiosity rising. There is no need to chase it. Creativity flourishes in spaciousness, in awareness, in the gentle willingness to explore. For now, let the mind open a little. The journey into the science and philosophy of creativity begins here, in this moment, in the quiet recognition that you already possess a creative mind, in the awareness that creativity is not something to earn, it is something to remember. This is the beginning of a long story, a story of how your brain brings new worlds into existence, a story of how humans became imaginative beings, a story of how creativity lives inside you, ready to be awakened, ready to be understood, ready to be shaped into whatever you choose. And as we move forward, you may let your body soften slightly, let the breath move easily, and allow the next chapter to unfold gently, one idea at a time. Creativity is one of the most mysterious qualities of the human mind. It is a force that has shaped our tools, our stories, our cities, and the course of our evolution. Yet when most people hear the word creativity, they imagine something rare, a gift bestowed on a select few, a spark of genius that arrives only in the minds of artists, inventors, and prodigies. We speak of creativity as if it belongs to someone else, as if it lies outside the everyday life of ordinary people. Tonight, we explore a different truth, a more honest and more beautiful truth. Creativity is not a rare talent. It is not a fortunate accident of genetics. It's not an exclusive club reserved for painters or poets or scientists. Creativity is a biological capacity that every human is born with. It is a psychological process that can be strengthened through practice. It is a philosophical mystery that reveals who we are when we imagine something that has never existed before. Take a slow breath if you would like to, not as a command, just as a gentle invitation to settle into this moment. The next hours will unfold like a journey, slow, deep, expansive, a journey into the origins of creativity in the brain, the emotions, the culture, and the human spirit. Creativity is often described as the ability to make something new, but novelty is only a small part of the story. The deeper truth is that creativity comes from how the brain forms connections, how memories meet, how ideas blend, how intuition arises, how errors become insights. Creativity is the mind learning to see itself from new angles. It is the organism reorganizing its own internal world. For thousands of years, the greatest thinkers have asked where creativity comes from. They wondered whether it is a divine gift, a biological feature, a psychological skill, or some kind of cosmic whisper. Philosophers have proposed that creativity is the closest humans ever come to touching the infinite. Neuroscientists describe it as a conversation between networks inside the brain. Psychologists frame it as a set of habits, attitudes, and mental movements. Anthropologists see it in the stories, symbols, and tools our ancestors left behind. Yet across all these perspectives, one theme remains constant. Creativity is universal. Every human mind possesses it. You are creative. You have always been creative. Even in moments when you felt blocked, even in moments when your ideas seemed small or ordinary. Creativity is not a switch that turns on or off. It is a living process that shifts with attention, emotion, environment, and experience. Let yourself breathe softly again if that feels comfortable. Allow the shoulders to loosen a little. This is a documentary-style exploration, but it is also an invitation to rest into the rhythm of ideas. There is no need to focus intensely or to analyze every detail. The mind will absorb what it absorbs. Insights will arise naturally. Creativity begins long before humans began painting on cave walls or shaping tools from stone. It begins with the brain's fundamental architecture. Millions of neurons firing in patterns that constantly reshape themselves. Every thought is a combination. Every idea is a recombination. Creativity is the mind's natural tendency to experiment with itself. We will travel through many landscapes tonight. The myth of talent, the networks of the creative brain, the strange moment when ideas are born from silence, the methods that strengthen creative thinking, the psychology of mood and curiosity, the environment that nourishes imagination, the long arc of human evolution, and the tools that carried creativity across generations. The philosophical nature of originality, the future of creativity in the age of artificial intelligence. And finally, a quiet reflection on living a creative life. As we begin, you may notice the breath settling, thoughts slowing, a sense of soft curiosity rising. There is no need to chase it. Creativity flourishes in spaciousness, in awareness, in the gentle willingness to explore. For now, let the mind open a little. The journey into the science and philosophy of creativity begins here, in this moment, in the quiet recognition that you already possess a creative mind, in the awareness that creativity is not something to earn, it is something to remember. This is the beginning of a long story, a story of how your brain brings new worlds into existence, a story of how humans became imaginative beings, a story of how creativity lives inside you, ready to be awakened, ready to be understood, ready to be shaped into whatever you choose. And as we move forward, you may let your body soften slightly, let the breath move easily, and allow the next chapter to unfold gently, one idea at a time. The myth of innate talent. Creativity has long been wrapped in a cloak of myth. People speak of it as if it belongs to a chosen few, as if only certain minds are capable of imagining something original, as if creativity is some rare element hidden deep within the world, accessible only to prodigies or those touched by an unusual spark. This myth is old and it is powerful, but it is not true. When we look more closely at human development, creativity is not an inherited gift. It is a natural capacity shaped by experience, attention, curiosity, and environment. Neuroscience reveals that the human brain is wired to form new connections, to discover patterns, to reshape itself with each action, each thought, each challenge. What people often call talent is usually exposure, practice, support, a willingness to keep exploring even when progress is slow. Across cultures, societies praise the child who paints beautifully or solves problems quickly. But the quieter truth is that creativity grows whenever a mind is allowed to experiment, whenever mistakes are accepted, whenever curiosity is encouraged. Many people lose touch with their creativity, not because they lack ability, but because at some point they learn to fear judgment, or they learn to value correctness more than exploration, or they internalize the idea that creativity belongs to someone else. Take a gentle breath if you want to. Creativity often begins with moments of small openness, small freedoms, small breaths that make space for possibility. Throughout history, the most celebrated innovators were not born with finished brilliance. Many were dismissed as ordinary. Some struggled for years. Others were told they lacked talent. Vincent van Gogh produced hundreds of works before finding the style we celebrate today. Thomas Edison experimented with thousands of materials before a single filament glowed steadily. Maya Angelou once believed she had nothing original left to say, yet she wrote words that changed the world. Creativity is not the absence of struggle, it is the persistence through it. Behind every masterpiece lies a long trail of discarded attempts, quiet doubts, uncertain steps, and unpolished drafts. But these are rarely shown. People see the outcome. They do not see the evolution. They see the illusion of genius, not the practice that built it. The myth of innate talent is comforting in a way. It protects people from confronting their own potential. If creativity is something you are born with, then there is no responsibility to cultivate it, no risk of failing at it. But this belief hides the deeper truth. Every mind has the potential to imagine, to reshape ideas, to blend memory with possibility. Creativity is not a binary quality, it is a spectrum, and everyone lives somewhere on it. The brain is not fixed, it is wired for change. Neural plasticity continues throughout life, creating new pathways when we engage with new challenges. When a person draws, brainstorms, writes, experiments, or even daydreams, the brain strengthens the circuitry that supports creative thinking. Creativity emerges from repetition, not revelation, from curiosity, not certainty. Think of a child at play. Children do not question whether they are creative. They simply explore. They rearrange objects. They imagine invisible worlds. They invent rules and break them. They create stories that stretch beyond logic. And they do all of this without instruction. The raw ingredients of creativity are present from the beginning. What changes is how society responds to it. Some children receive encouragement. Their experiments are supported. Their questions are welcomed. Their mistakes are seen as part of learning. These children often grow into adults who remain comfortable with uncertainty. They keep exploring. They keep imagining. Others learn to narrow themselves. They learn that correctness is rewarded and deviation is punished. They learn that some talents are praised and others ignored. Over time, they stop taking creative risks, not because they lack creativity, but because they have learned to silence it. Allow your breath to settle softly if that feels comfortable. Creativity often reawakens when the mind is given a moment of spaciousness, a moment without pressure or expectation. If we look far back into human evolution, creativity was not a luxury. It was a tool for survival. Early humans learned to experiment with stone, wood, fire, pigment, language. No one was born knowing how to do these things. They learned through trial, error, curiosity, and shared culture. Creativity emerged because life demanded it. The ability to imagine new solutions offered an advantage. The ability to tell stories helped communities unite. Creativity was woven into human life, not as a rare talent, but as an essential adaptation. Modern research supports this evolutionary truth. Studies show that creative ability does not hinge on a single factor. Instead, it depends on a cluster of influences. How often a person practices creative thinking, how comfortable they are with ambiguity, how willing they are to explore ideas without immediate reward, how safe they feel while taking risks, how deeply they engage with the world. When people believe they are not creative, they often withdraw from the behaviors that nurture creativity. They avoid challenges. They shy away from unfamiliar tasks. They repeat what they already know instead of experimenting. The myth becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when people believe creativity is something that can be built, their behavior changes. They reflect more. They explore more. They become more resilient when ideas fail. They adapt. They improve. They grow into the creativity they once thought was absent. A gentle breath, a softening of the shoulders, a moment of openness. These small shifts can sometimes return the mind to its natural state of curiosity. The truth is that creativity is not a lightning strike. It is a slow and steady unfolding. It is a lifelong process shaped by attention, experience, and emotion. The myth of innate talent collapses under the weight of evidence. Creativity is a capacity that grows whenever the mind is given the chance to explore. Every human is creative, not in the same way, not in the same form, but in essence, in potential, in the structure of the brain itself. Creativity is not a gift, it is an inheritance. And as we move deeper into the science of the creative brain, this truth becomes even more clear. The creative brain. The human brain is often compared to a machine, a computer, or an intricate network of circuits. Yet none of these metaphors fully capture the depth of its creative potential. Creativity does not arise from a single region or a single type of thought. It emerges from a conversation between networks, each with its own rhythm and purpose. A delicate and dynamic interplay that shifts depending on mood, intention, and environment. At the heart of this process lies the default mode network. This network becomes active when the mind wanders, when we drift into daydreams, or when we let thoughts move without direction. It is here that the brain explores possibilities, revisits memories, and forms new combinations of ideas. Some of the most creative insights in history have emerged not during moments of focused concentration, but during moments of relaxed thought. A quiet walk, a warm shower, a gentle pause between tasks. When the mind feels free to roam, the default mode network lights up, weaving together fragments of experience into something new. If you want to, take a slow breath, not to force relaxation, but to give the mind a moment of space. Creativity often arises in the moments when pressure loosens its grip. Alongside the default mode network is another powerful system, the executive control network. This network governs attention, decision-making, planning, and focus. It is the part of the mind that takes the raw material produced by wandering thought and shapes it into something coherent. Without it, creativity would remain unstructured, a swirling cloud of ideas with no form or direction. The executive control network brings discipline to imagination. It helps refine ideas, test them, and turn them into something meaningful. Between these two networks lies a third, the salience network. It acts like a switchboard operator. It decides when the brain should drift into imagination and when it should return to focus. It recognizes what is relevant, what is important, and what deserves attention. When the salience network functions well, the brain moves smoothly between creative exploration and deliberate thinking. This balance is essential for creativity to flourish. For many years, scientists believed that creativity was a right brain phenomenon, but modern research reveals something much more fascinating. Creativity is not confined to one hemisphere. Instead, it arises from the cooperation of regions across both sides of the brain. The left hemisphere contributes structure, language, and logic. The right hemisphere contributes imagery, intuition, and emotional tone. But the greatest creative moments occur when both sides work together. Imagination guided by logic, logic softened by imagination. The brain is constantly scanning for patterns. When it encounters familiar information, it strengthens known pathways. But when it encounters novelty, when it explores new ideas or new experiences, it begins to form fresh connections. These new connections become the foundation for creative thinking. This is why environments rich in diversity, challenge, and curiosity tend to spark greater creativity. The brain thrives on variation. It grows when exposed to difference. Allow the shoulders to ease if that feels pleasant. Creativity often deepens when the body feels unhurried. One of the most fascinating aspects of the creative brain is the way it processes information beneath conscious awareness. Long before an idea reaches the surface of consciousness, the brain is already weaving it together. Memories, impressions, emotional experiences, and sensory cues merge in hidden layers of processing. This is why insights often appear suddenly. The brain has been working quietly in the background, and then, in a single moment, everything falls into place. This moment is often described as the aha moment, a burst of clarity that seems to come from nowhere. Neuroimaging studies show that during an insight, a small region in the temporal lobe lights up as neural pathways briefly synchronize. This synchronization creates a sense of revelation, a feeling that something new has appeared all at once. But in reality, the insight is the final step of a long chain of unconscious processing. The brain is capable of astonishing flexibility. It can move from analytical precision to imaginative wandering and back again. It can break patterns and create new ones. It can reshape old ideas into new forms. Creativity emerges when the mind is allowed to move across these modes with ease. To enhance creativity, many people try to force their minds to produce ideas. But the creative brain resists force. It works best when given room to breathe, when attention shifts naturally between focus and freedom, when the mind feels safe, curious, and open. Small invitations to relax can support this. A gentle breath, a softening in the chest, a moment of stillness between thoughts. These are not requirements. They are simply spaces where the creative brain feels more at home. Another important aspect of the creative brain is cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift perspectives, to consider multiple possibilities, to reinterpret problems in new ways. People with greater cognitive flexibility tend to excel in creative tasks because they are less rigid. They do not cling to a single viewpoint. They move fluidly between interpretations. This flexibility is supported by both the default mode network and the executive control network. The default mode network generates multiple possibilities. The executive control network evaluates them. When these networks communicate effectively, creativity becomes more fluid. Ideas emerge more freely. Solutions become more original. Neuroplasticity plays a significant role in this process. Each time the brain engages in creative thinking, it strengthens the neural circuits that support creativity. Over time, the mind becomes more comfortable exploring novelty, more comfortable generating ideas, more comfortable expressing itself. This is why creativity grows with practice. It is a skill that expands through use, a mental muscle that strengthens with repetition. The brain is a living system. It adapts, it evolves, it seeks patterns and creates new ones. Creativity is one of its most natural expressions. As we continue exploring the birth of ideas, the brain's inner workings reveal something profound. Creativity is not a mysterious gift. It is a biological process, a collaboration between networks, a dance between wandering thought and structured focus. a rhythm the mind has carried for thousands of years. And in that rhythm lies the source of every idea waiting to be born, the birth of ideas. An idea often feels like a small spark, a sudden flicker of light in the mind, a moment when something new begins to take shape. But beneath that moment lies a complex and elegant process, a process that weaves together memory, emotion, intuition, and perception. Ideas do not appear from emptiness. They emerge from the deep activity of the mind as it blends the old into something that feels new. Divergent thinking is one of the foundations of this process. It is the ability to generate many possibilities rather than searching for a single correct answer. When the mind moves divergently, it travels outward. It explores multiple directions. It considers alternatives that might seem strange or unrelated at first. This expansion is essential for creativity. Without it, the mind remains trapped in familiar patterns. If you would like to, feel the breath soften for a moment. These quiet pauses create a sense of spaciousness where ideas can breathe. Pattern recognition is another pillar of idea creation. The brain is constantly searching for connections. It notices similarities, relationships, and recurring shapes in the world. Sometimes these patterns are obvious. Other times they are subtle. Creativity emerges when the brain links patterns that were not previously connected, when it sees relationships others have overlooked, when it combines elements that do not seem to belong together. Think of a poet who takes a childhood memory and blends it with the image of a storm, or a scientist who observes the structure of a leaf and imagines a new design for solar panels, or a musician who hears the rhythm of footsteps and transforms it into a melody. These moments are not random. They are the result of the brain's natural drive to merge patterns into something meaningful. Memory also plays a central role. Every experience leaves traces in the mind. These traces do not remain separate. They overlap, they interact, they form networks of association. When the brain searches for ideas, it often draws from these overlapping memory networks. A smell may remind you of a place you visited years ago. A sound may trigger an old emotion. A concept may blend with a story you once heard. Creativity thrives in these intersections. The process of blending memories is sometimes called conceptual expansion. The brain takes existing concepts and stretches them. It bends them. It reshapes them into broader forms. This is how ideas evolve from simple associations into complex creations. Allow the shoulders to loosen slightly if it feels natural. A softer body often supports a softer mind, which in turn encourages gentle curiosity. Intuition is another force in the birth of ideas. Many people misunderstand intuition as something mystical. In reality, intuition is rapid, subconscious pattern processing. It is the brain recognizing connections faster than conscious thought can follow. When someone says they have a feeling about something, their mind has already analyzed countless subtle cues. It has already compared current information with past experiences. Intuition is not irrational. It is deeply intelligent. It is the mind responding before it has time to explain. Incubation is a critical stage in the creative process. This is the period when ideas quietly evolve without conscious effort. After working intensely on a problem, stepping away often leads to the breakthrough. A walk, a moment in nature, a shower, a brief nap. These pauses allow the subconscious mind to organize information, dissolve mental tension, and form new associations. Many creative breakthroughs occur during these restful moments. Sleep also plays an essential role. During different sleep cycles, the brain reorganizes memories and processes complex patterns. Dreams blend impressions in ways that seem illogical to the waking mind. Yet these dreamlike combinations can lead to new ideas or unexpected solutions. When the mind releases its rigid attachment to logic, creativity expands. If you want to, feel the breath deepen just slightly, not as a task, simply as an invitation to settle into the rhythm of the story. Emotional context influences idea formation as well. When we feel safe, relaxed, or curious, the brain becomes more flexible. When we feel threatened or overwhelmed, creativity narrows. Ideas need room. They need psychological space. They grow best when the mind feels open to exploration. Often, the birth of an idea begins with a simple question. What if? This small phrase opens a doorway. It invites the mind to step beyond the boundaries of what is already known. Every great scientific theory, every piece of art, every breakthrough in technology began with some version of this question. What if there is a different way to see this? What if the world is more than it appears? What if the solution lies in an unexpected direction? This question does not demand an immediate answer. It simply encourages exploration. And exploration is the fuel of creativity. When an idea finally emerges, it rarely appears fully formed. It arrives as a small shape, a hint, a direction, a fragment. This is the raw material of creativity, the early stage when ideas are fragile. They require patience, curiosity, and protection from harsh judgment. A creative mind learns to nurture these early sparks, to let them grow before evaluating them. Some of the most transformative ideas in history began as ordinary thoughts. Thoughts that someone decided to explore more deeply. Thoughts that evolved through practice, iteration, and reflection. The birth of an idea is not a single event. It is a journey, a sequence of steps that move between conscious and subconscious thought, between expansion and focus, between rest and exploration. To understand creativity is to understand this rhythm, a gentle cycle of searching, drifting, discovering, and shaping. As we move toward the practical techniques for enhancing creativity, the deeper truth becomes clear. Ideas are not gifts from the unknown. They are the natural language of the brain. They are the way the mind expresses its capacity to transform the world around it. And with each idea, no matter how small, the mind reveals its ability to reshape experience into something new. Hacking neural pathways. Creativity often appears mysterious from the outside, but at its core it depends on how the brain forms and reorganizes connections. Neural pathways are strengthened by use and weakened by neglect. They change based on what we pay attention to, what we practice, and how we challenge ourselves. When people talk about boosting creativity, what they are really describing is shaping the brain to think more flexibly, more openly, and more originally. One of the most effective ways to enhance creativity is through deliberate brainstorming, but not the kind that forces ideas under pressure. True brainstorming works when judgment is suspended and ideas are allowed to flow without immediate evaluation. The mind opens more easily when it does not feel the weight of correctness. In this state, the brain builds associations more freely, exploring unusual paths that might be ignored under strict focus. If you want to, breathe in slowly for a moment. Let the exhale loosen any tension. When the mind feels spacious, ideas travel more easily. Divergent thinking exercises help strengthen the neural circuits associated with creative expansion. Simple practices can create measurable changes in the brain over time. listing multiple uses for an everyday object, generating alternative endings to a familiar story, imagining different solutions to a small inconvenience in daily life. These exercises train the mind to step outside habitual patterns. Mind mapping is another powerful technique. When thoughts are placed on a page and allowed to branch in multiple directions, the brain is encouraged to explore connections that are not immediately obvious. This visual expansion mirrors the neural expansion happening inside the mind. It creates a landscape where ideas can meet and merge. Structured constraints also play a surprising role in enhancing creativity. Many people assume that freedom leads to better ideas, but research shows that constraints often push the mind to think more originally. When options are limitless, the mind tends to choose familiar solutions. But when boundaries are introduced, the brain searches for new pathways. A writer who limits themselves to a single theme, a designer who works with only 2 colors, a musician who composes using a restricted set of notes. These limits force the mind to innovate. Allow your shoulders to soften if that feels natural. Creativity thrives in environments where the body feels calm, but the mind feels gently stimulated. Another technique that strengthens creativity is the cycle of divergent and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking generates possibilities. Convergent thinking evaluates them. Many people attempt to do both at the same time, but this creates conflict in the mind. Separating the 2 stages allows creativity to unfold more effectively. First, open the field of ideas. Then, once options are available, bring focus and refinement. Novelty is one of the most powerful drivers of neuroplasticity. When the brain encounters something new, it releases chemicals that enhance learning and memory. Even small experiences can have significant effects. Taking a different route to work, trying a new genre of music, learning a few words in another language, exposing the senses to new textures, colors, and environments. Each moment of novelty helps the mind form fresh connections. Challenge also stimulates creativity. When tasks are too easy, the brain becomes passive. When tasks are too overwhelming, the brain becomes stressed. Creativity grows between these 2 extremes, in the zone where challenge meets capability. This space encourages experimentation and persistence. It keeps the mind alert and flexible. If you feel comfortable, let the breath deepen slightly. These small pauses create room for reflection. Embodied thinking is another technique that enhances creativity. This involves using physical movement to support mental exploration. A gentle walk can stimulate the mind. Stretching or pacing can help ideas unfold. Many creative thinkers throughout history relied on movement to generate insights. The body shifts the rhythm of the mind. When the body moves, thoughts often move too. Tools also influence neural pathways. Writing by hand activates different circuits than typing. Sketching engages spatial networks. Speaking thoughts aloud stimulates linguistic pathways. Using varied tools activates different parts of the brain, enriching the creative process. Curiosity is perhaps the most powerful driver of all. When the mind approaches the world with genuine curiosity, it becomes more receptive, more observant, more playful. Curiosity encourages the brain to look beyond the obvious. It asks questions that open doors. It dissolves fear and replaces it with exploration. The brain strengthens whatever pathways are used most often. When people practice creativity regularly, even in small ways, their neural circuits adapt. They become more capable of forming new connections, more comfortable with uncertainty, more resilient in the face of complexity. Repetition shapes the brain, but not mechanical repetition, creative repetition, the kind that invites variation, reflection, and gradual refinement. Take one more slow breath if you would like to. Creativity is nourished by moments of gentle awareness, moments where the mind is given enough space to explore without pressure. The techniques that enhance creativity are not complicated. They are simple practices that encourage the brain to move beyond habit, to experiment, to play, to combine, to imagine. As we turn toward the environments that shape creative thought, one truth becomes clear. Creativity does not flourish in isolation. It grows in response to the world around us. It grows when the mind is supported by spaces, people, and conditions that invite imagination. The creative environment. Creativity is not shaped by the mind alone. It is shaped by the world around us, the spaces we inhabit, the people we interact with, the cues our senses absorb, the emotional atmosphere that surrounds our thoughts. A creative idea is born inside the brain, but it grows in response to the environment. Even the most imaginative mind can struggle in a space that feels tense, chaotic, or restrictive. And even a hesitant mind can flourish in a space that feels open, warm, and accepting. Physical space plays a surprisingly powerful role. The brain responds to light, color, sound, and arrangement in ways that influence how ideas form. Natural light tends to enhance cognitive flexibility. Warm, soft lighting often supports calm reflection. Clutter can overwhelm the mind, while too much emptiness can feel sterile. A balance between order and inspiration tends to foster creativity. A room with meaningful objects, gentle colors, and open surfaces encourages exploration. It gives the mind permission to reach outward. If you want to, allow the breath to settle softly into the body. The mind often opens more easily when the body feels grounded. Sound also shapes creativity. Some people think best in silence, where thoughts can move without interruption. Others thrive with soft ambient sounds, gentle music, or the quiet hum of a cafe. These sounds create a sense of safety and connection, reminding the mind that it is part of a larger world. Rhythmic or repetitive sounds can also support deeper focus, helping ideas stretch into new territory. Nature is one of the most powerful creative environments. Even brief exposure to natural spaces enhances attention, lowers stress, and supports flexible thinking. Trees, water, open skies, and shifting light all trigger subtle responses in the brain that promote curiosity. Nature invites the mind to roam, to drift, and to explore without pressure. It softens rigidity. It encourages imagination. Social environments shape creativity just as strongly. Creative thinking thrives where people feel psychologically safe. When individuals feel understood, respected, and unafraid of looking foolish, they take more risks with their ideas. They experiment. They share thoughts that are not fully formed. They speak without rehearsing. This openness is essential because many great ideas begin as imperfect fragments. In environments where judgment is harsh or competition is intense, creativity shrinks. The mind protects itself. It avoids risk. It chooses familiar paths instead of new ones. Fear blocks exploration. But in environments where people encourage one another, creativity expands. The mind feels free to wander. Conversations become sources of inspiration. Collaboration becomes a pathway to discovery. If it feels comfortable, let your shoulders loosen a bit. A relaxed posture often supports a relaxed mind. Failure tolerance is another crucial element of a creative environment. Innovation requires trial and error. It requires attempts that do not work, ideas that fall short, experiments that reveal unexpected outcomes. When an environment treats failure as a necessary step in growth rather than a flaw, people feel more willing to try again, more willing to take bold steps, more willing to imagine solutions that break from tradition. Many of history's greatest breakthroughs came from environments that embraced experimentation. Laboratories where questions were valued more than answers. Studios where artists encouraged one another to push boundaries. Workshops where inventors shared mistakes openly. These environments turned curiosity into collective momentum. The iterative process is central to creativity. Try, adjust, refine, repeat. The mind learns through repetition with variation. Each cycle strengthens neural pathways and reveals new possibilities. A supportive environment makes this cycle sustainable. It provides space to attempt, fail, reflect, and attempt again without fear. Physical movement within an environment also influences creativity. A walk through a hallway, a step onto a balcony, a moment by an open window. These small shifts give the brain new sensory input. They interrupt rigid thinking. They refresh the mind's internal landscape. Even subtle movement can spark new associations. Community shapes creativity in profound ways. Sharing ideas with others exposes the mind to fresh perspectives. Diverse viewpoints expand cognitive flexibility. Conversations can illuminate blind spots or spark new directions. Creative communities are ecosystems of mutual inspiration. When people gather with the intention to explore rather than compete, they ignite one another's imagination. Let the breath move gently if you wish. A calm body supports clarity, and clarity supports creativity. The digital environment also plays a role. Online tools can expose people to new ideas, images, and stories. But digital overload can disrupt attention and scatter creative energy. Balance is essential. The mind needs periods of deep focus, free from constant notifications. Moments of uninterrupted thought allow ideas to crystallize. A creative environment is not defined by perfection. It is defined by possibility. Some people create best in tidy, quiet spaces. Others thrive in messy studios filled with materials. Some prefer solitude. Others need social connection. Creativity grows when a person discovers the environment that aligns with their inner rhythm. What truly matters is the emotional tone of the space. Spaces that feel safe. Spaces that feel alive. Spaces that encourage exploration. Spaces that allow the mind to stretch beyond its familiar borders. As we turn toward the emotional and psychological aspects of creativity, one truth becomes clear. Creativity does not grow solely from intellect. It grows from feeling, from mood, from the subtle currents of emotion that shape how we perceive the world. And within those emotions lies the next layer of the creative mind: emotional and psychological creativity. Creativity lives in the mind, but it grows through emotion. It is shaped by how we feel, how we interpret our experiences, and how we respond to the world around us. Many people imagine creativity as a purely intellectual process, but emotion is the current that carries ideas forward. It colors perception, it influences attention, it guides intuition. Without emotion, creativity becomes mechanical. With emotion, it becomes alive. Mood has a profound effect on creative thinking. When the mind feels relaxed or curious, ideas move more freely. When mood becomes heavy or stressed, creativity narrows. This is not a flaw. It is a feature of the brain. Positive mood broadens attention, opening the mind to new connections. Challenging moods can deepen introspection and add emotional richness to ideas. Both states contribute to creativity in different ways. If you would like to, take a slow breath and let the exhale soften your chest. Emotional spaciousness often supports mental flexibility. Openness to experience is one of the strongest psychological predictors of creativity. People who approach life with a sense of exploration, who enjoy discovering new ideas, who are willing to consider unfamiliar perspectives, tend to generate more original thought. Openness is not about lack of structure. It is about willingness. The willingness to let go of rigid answers. The willingness to imagine alternatives. The willingness to learn from what is unknown. Curiosity is the emotional spark that fuels this openness. It pulls the mind toward new experiences. It asks questions that disrupt routine. It invites the brain to investigate patterns, ideas, stories, and sensations. Curiosity turns ordinary moments into creative opportunities. It encourages playful investigation. It dissolves the fear of looking foolish. The emotional landscape of creativity often includes uncertainty. When we explore new ideas, we step into unfamiliar territory. This can feel exciting. It can also feel unsettling. People who become comfortable with uncertainty tend to create more boldly. They understand that not knowing is the first step to discovery. They see ambiguity as possibility, not danger. If it feels natural, let your shoulders fall gently into a softer position. Uncertainty is easier to navigate when the body feels at ease. Resilience is another essential element of psychological creativity. Every creative journey includes setbacks, ideas that fall flat, attempts that do not work, moments when the mind feels stuck. Creativity does not demand that we avoid these moments. It asks that we continue through them. Resilience turns obstacles into stepping stones. It transforms discouragement into learning. This resilience often develops not through success, but through failure. Each time we recover from a creative setback, the brain learns something valuable. It learns that difficulty is temporary. It learns that effort leads to growth. It learns that ideas evolve with time. Resilience strengthens the neural networks responsible for persistence and problem solving. It trains the mind to return after challenge with greater depth and clarity. If you would like, feel the breath move gently in and out. A calm rhythm supports emotional steadiness, and emotional steadiness supports creative flow. Self-compassion is a powerful but often overlooked influence on creativity. Harsh self-criticism tightens the mind, making it difficult to explore freely. It shuts down experimentation. It narrows attention to familiar paths. But when people treat themselves with kindness, when they allow imperfection, their creativity expands. They take more risks. They recover faster from setbacks. They trust their ideas enough to explore them. The inner dialogue matters. When the mind speaks to itself with softness, it becomes a safer place for ideas to grow. Flow states are another emotional phenomenon connected to creativity. Flow occurs when a person becomes fully absorbed in an activity. Time feels elastic. Effort feels natural. The mind becomes deeply engaged. Flow supports creativity because it merges attention and curiosity into a single stream. It allows the brain to operate with fluidity and focus at the same time. People in flow generate ideas more rapidly and refine them with greater ease. Flow does not always come easily. It requires a balance between challenge and capability. It requires clear goals, reduced distractions, and emotional presence. But once flow emerges, it becomes a powerful driver of creative expression. If you want to, Breathe in slowly and let the exhale lengthen just slightly. Flow often begins when the mind feels settled, yet alert. Creative blocks are a natural part of the emotional landscape. They often emerge when stress rises, when perfectionism tightens its grip, when fear of judgment becomes too strong, or when the mind becomes overwhelmed. A block is not a failure of imagination. It is a signal, a sign that the mind needs rest, variation, or support. A temporary pause where the subconscious processes what the conscious mind cannot yet articulate. Gentle movement, new environments, or small acts of play often dissolve creative blocks. Sometimes the mind simply needs permission to do nothing for a moment. To breathe, to drift, to reset. Creativity often returns when pressure fades. The emotional and psychological dimensions of creativity reveal something important. Ideas do not arise from cold logic alone. They come from feeling, from longing, from fascination, from joy, from frustration, from the desire to understand life more deeply. Creativity is an emotional journey as much as a cognitive one. It asks us to stay curious, to stay open, to stay resilient, to stay gentle with ourselves. It asks us to allow ideas to take shape without forcing them into perfection too soon. As we move into the cultural and evolutionary roots of creativity, the picture expands even further. Creativity is not just a personal process, it is a collective inheritance, a story that began long before any one person imagined their first idea. Cultural and evolutionary creativity. Creativity did not begin with modern art, scientific breakthroughs, or technological inventions. Its roots reach far deeper into the earliest chapters of human history. Long before written language, long before cities, long before tools became sophisticated, creativity lived inside the minds of early humans. It emerged not as a luxury, but as a necessity, a tool for survival, a way to navigate the uncertainty of the natural world, a way to communicate, interpret, and imagine. When we look back at ancient humanity, we see the first traces of creative expression carved into cave walls, shaped into stone tools, woven into early myths, and spoken around fires. These traces reveal something profound. Creativity is not an invention of civilization. It is an inherent part of what it means to be human. If you want to, allow your breath to slow just a little. These long arcs of history often feel more vivid when the mind is quiet and spacious. Early humans relied on creativity to adapt. The world they lived in was unpredictable. Weather shifted without warning. Predator and prey patterns changed with the seasons. Landscapes demanded new strategies for survival. Creativity allowed early humans to experiment, to test new materials for tools, to imagine ways to hunt more effectively, to develop methods for storing food. Creative thinking increased the chances of survival, making it an evolutionary advantage. One of the earliest signs of creativity is the emergence of symbolic thinking. Symbolic thinking is the ability to let one thing represent another. A mark on a wall can represent a memory. A gesture can represent a story. A rhythm can represent emotion. This ability to use symbols transformed the human mind. It gave us language. It gave us art. It gave us shared meaning. Symbolic thinking turned isolated minds into connected communities. It allowed knowledge to travel from generation to generation. Without this ability, creativity would remain limited to individual experience. With it, ideas could expand across time, carried forward by stories, images, and traditions. If it feels natural, let your shoulders soften a little. The mind often understands the past more deeply when the body feels at ease. The tools created by early humans, also reveal the evolution of creativity. Stone tools evolved from simple flakes to sophisticated implements shaped with precision. These changes did not happen suddenly. They emerged through countless iterations. Small improvements passed from one generation to the next. Each improvement reflected creativity, a willingness to adapt, a drive to enhance, a recognition of possibility. Art emerged not only as decoration, but as communication. Paintings found in ancient caves show animals, shapes, and patterns that held meaning within early communities. These images may have conveyed stories, identities, rituals, or teachings. They also reveal the human desire to express internal thoughts in external form. Creativity allowed thoughts to leave the mind and enter the world. Language was perhaps the greatest creative achievement in human evolution. It allowed abstract ideas to be shared with precision. It enabled cooperation, storytelling, and planning. Language gave humans the ability to imagine futures, remember pasts, and construct shared realities. With language, creativity expanded from individual imagination to cultural transformation. If you would like to, take a gentle breath. These movements through time often feel grounding when paired with calm awareness. Stories became one of the primary vehicles of cultural creativity. Early myths explained natural events, taught moral lessons, preserved history, and built identity. These stories shaped collective understanding. They guided behavior. They inspired dreams. They helped humans interpret the world in ways that supported survival and meaning. Tools, art, language, and stories formed the cultural ecosystem that nurtured creativity. As societies grew, creativity took on new roles. It became a form of identity, expression, innovation, and communication. It became woven into rituals, traditions, and social structures. Collective creativity emerged when groups of people collaborated. Communities designed structures, developed technologies, orchestrated music, and created complex social systems. Creativity became a shared force, a collective intelligence, a network of minds building upon one another. Communication accelerated this process. When ideas spread, they triggered new ideas in others. Innovation grew not just upward, but outward, across villages, across regions, across civilizations. Creativity became a cultural chain reaction. Let the breath ease in and out if that feels comfortable. These reflections offer space to appreciate the long lineage of human imagination. Throughout history, creativity has shaped every corner of human life. Architectural styles evolved as societies experimented with structure and form. Music shifted as cultures blended rhythms and instruments. Philosophies emerged as thinkers, questioned meaning and existence. Technology advanced as people imagined solutions to pressing problems. Every generation inherits the creative achievements of the one before it, and every generation adds something new. Creativity is an unbroken chain stretching across thousands of years, each link shaped by those who came before. This evolutionary perspective reveals something beautiful. Creativity is not an isolated act. It is part of a story far larger than any individual. When you imagine something new, you participate in a human tradition that began tens of thousands of years ago. A tradition of exploring what is possible. As we step into the philosophical dimension of creativity, the focus shifts from our origins to the nature of originality itself. What does it mean to create something new? Why do humans feel drawn to innovate? What is the essence of an idea? In these questions, we find the deeper meaning of creative expression. Philosophy of creativity. Creativity can be studied through neuroscience and psychology, but there is another dimension that reaches beyond biology, a philosophical dimension, a space where we explore the nature of originality, the meaning of ideas, and the mysterious relationship between the mind and the world. Philosophy invites us to step back from the mechanisms of creativity and consider its deeper purpose, its essence, its place in the human experience. At its heart, creativity raises a profound question. What does it mean for something to be new? On the surface, originality seems obvious. A new painting, a new theory, a new invention. Yet, when we look closely, every idea is built from something that came before. Every story is influenced by older stories. Every invention expands upon earlier tools. Every melody echoes patterns the mind has heard before. If you want to, take a slow breath and feel a soft sense of openness. Philosophy often lands more clearly when the mind feels spacious. Human creativity rarely emerges from pure emptiness. Instead, it transforms what already exists. It reshapes the familiar into something unfamiliar. It combines elements in ways that create new meaning. In this sense, creativity is less about creation from nothing and more about transformation. A continuous conversation between the known and the unknown. Imitation plays a surprising role in this process. It is often dismissed as uncreative, but imitation is the foundation of learning. Children imitate before they innovate. Artists study the techniques of their predecessors before developing their own style. Scientists build upon the work of earlier thinkers. Innovation grows out of imitation. By absorbing the patterns of others, the mind gains the raw material needed to form new patterns of its own. Innovation emerges when those patterns are rearranged in ways that reveal new possibilities. When a familiar structure is viewed from a different angle, when an old idea is applied in a new context, when two unrelated concepts meet and evolve into something unexpected, creativity is the art of recombination. If it feels natural, allow your posture to soften slightly. A relaxed state helps ideas drift into deeper layers of understanding. Another philosophical question asks where ideas truly come from. Are they generated by the brain alone? Or do they emerge from an interaction between the mind and the world? Some philosophers suggest that ideas already exist within the structure of reality, waiting to be discovered. Others argue that ideas are constructed entirely within the mind, shaped by personal experience. Perhaps creativity is a blend of both. The world offers patterns, textures, stories, and possibilities. The mind interprets them, rearranges them, and transforms them into new forms. Creativity may be the meeting point between perception and imagination, a bridge between what is observed and what is envisioned. This raises another question. Why do humans feel compelled to create? Why do we imagine worlds that do not yet exist? Why do we paint, write, compose, invent, design, sculpt, theorize, and explore? One answer is that creativity gives meaning to experience. It allows us to express inner life, to shape emotion into form, to understand ourselves and the world more deeply. Creativity is also a way of participating in existence. When we create, we join the ongoing story of life. We leave traces of our mind in the world, traces that may inspire others long after we are gone. Creativity becomes a dialogue between generations, a way of extending ourselves beyond the limits of time. If you wish, take a gentle breath and feel a sense of grounding in the present moment. These reflections move through large questions, and a calm foundation helps them settle. Another philosophical aspect of creativity is mystery. Even with scientific understanding, there remains something intangible about the creative process, something that cannot be measured or predicted. The moment when an idea arrives feels almost magical. A quiet shift, a subtle spark, a feeling of recognition, as if the idea had been waiting just beneath the surface. This sense of mystery does not diminish creativity. It enriches it. It reminds us that the mind is more than a machine. It is a living landscape filled with layers we do not fully understand. Creativity emerges from the intersection of deliberate thought and something softer, something that whispers rather than instructs. Time is another important philosophical element of creativity. Ideas often need space to grow. They arrive slowly. They evolve. They change shape. Creativity teaches patience. It teaches us to trust the process rather than chase immediate results. It reminds us that insight often appears when we stop forcing it. If it feels comfortable, let your breath drift into an easy rhythm. Slow, natural, unhurried. The mind often understands philosophy through sensation as much as thought. The value of creativity is not limited to outcomes. It is also present in the experience of creating. The process invites reflection, presence, curiosity, and emotional expression. It connects us to something beyond productivity, something more essential, a sense of meaning. Creativity also raises questions about identity. When we imagine, who is doing the imagining? Is the self the origin of ideas? Or is the self shaped by the ideas it produces? In creating, we discover aspects of ourselves that were previously hidden. Creativity becomes a mirror. It reveals who we are, what we value, and how we make sense of the world. Ethics also touch creativity. Ideas influence lives. Innovations shape societies. Stories shift beliefs. Creativity carries responsibility. When we create, we participate in shaping minds. Creativity becomes a force with moral weight. Yet, even with its complexity, creativity remains a deeply human expression. It is the way consciousness explores itself, the way humanity moves forward, the way cultures evolve. As we turn toward the future of creativity, new possibilities emerge. Possibilities shaped not only by human imagination, but by intelligent tools that expand the boundaries of what minds can do. The fusion of human intuition and technological augmentation opens a new chapter. A chapter where creativity becomes a collaboration between worlds. The future of creativity. Creativity is not a fixed trait, and it is not confined to the past. It is an evolving force that moves with humanity, adapting to each new era. Today we stand at a remarkable moment in history, a moment in which human thought is merging with tools that extend perception, memory, and imagination. A moment where creativity is being reshaped by technology, by artificial intelligence, and by the expanding capabilities of the human mind. The future of creativity is not a story about machines replacing imagination. It is a story about how human imagination evolves when given new instruments. Every major shift in creative history has come from new tools. The brush transformed art, the pen transformed thought, the camera transformed memory, the computer transformed design, and now artificial intelligence is opening a new frontier, a frontier that invites collaboration rather than competition. If you want to, let the breath move softly and evenly. The scale of this future feels expansive, and a calm mind meets it with clarity. Artificial intelligence introduces a new kind of creative partner. a partner that can process vast patterns, explore variations, and expand possibilities at speeds far beyond human capacity. But AI does not possess human insight, emotional nuance, or the lived experience that shapes meaning. Instead, it amplifies the human ability to explore ideas. It becomes a tool that extends imagination rather than replacing it. Human creativity in the future may look less like solitary inspiration and more like dialogue, a conversation between person and machine, between intuition and algorithm, between emotional depth and expansive data, each side offering something the other cannot. Consider how artists might use AI to generate thousands of variations of a concept, then choose the one that resonates most deeply with their vision. How scientists might use AI to explore complex hypotheses faster than ever before, freeing their minds for conceptual insight. How designers, writers, musicians, and thinkers might use intelligent tools to accelerate experimentation while preserving the distinctly human qualities of choice, emotion, and meaning. If it feels natural, let your shoulders settle gently downward. These contemplations often land more fully when the body feels open. Cognitive enhancement will also play a role in the future of creativity. Not in the sense of artificial intelligence alone, but in the ways humans augment their own mental abilities. Improved access to knowledge, new forms of education, and advanced cognitive tools will help the mind stretch beyond its current boundaries. Technologies may eventually allow humans to visualize ideas in 3 dimensions, to model abstract concepts in immersive environments, or to explore the mind's own patterns through brain interface devices. These innovations will not diminish human creativity. They will expand it. They will allow people to explore ideas that were previously inaccessible. They will open doors to new forms of art, science, philosophy, and problem solving. Creativity will become more collaborative, more interdisciplinary, and more deeply interconnected. If you would like, take a slow breath and feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. The future often feels more approachable when met with softness. Another aspect of the future of creativity involves the blending of cultures and global perspectives. As societies become increasingly connected, creative ideas spread across borders with unprecedented speed. Traditions blend, art forms merge, scientific discoveries build upon global collaboration. This fusion enriches creativity, creating hybrid expressions that carry the strengths of many cultures. Innovation in the future will also depend on emotional intelligence. As machines take on more analytical tasks, human value will increasingly lie in insight, empathy, intuition, and meaning-making. These qualities cannot be automated. They emerge from lived experience, emotion, and consciousness. The future will not separate human and artificial intelligence. It will highlight the strengths of both. And as global challenges grow more complex, creativity will play a vital role in solving them. Climate change, resource management, ethical technology, psychological well-being, and social connection all demand imaginative thinking. The answers will not come from tradition alone. They will come from minds willing to envision new pathways, from people who can blend science, empathy, curiosity, and imagination. Creativity will become a necessity, not an option. If it feels comfortable, breathe softly into the belly. A calm presence helps the mind consider large questions with clarity. The future of creativity also raises ethical considerations. As tools become more powerful, the responsibility to use them wisely becomes more significant. Creativity shapes culture. It influences beliefs. It alters the direction of societies. Ethical creativity requires awareness of impact. It requires humility. It requires a commitment to using imagination in service of human well-being, rather than manipulation or harm. Despite the complexity of these possibilities, one thing remains certain. Human creativity will continue to evolve. It will continue to surprise us. It will continue to transform the world. Creativity is the thread that connects our ancient ancestors to our distant future. It is the force that carries humanity forward. The merging of human intuition with technological amplification does not diminish the individual. It strengthens the individual. It supports the mind in exploring the vast landscape of possibility. It allows people to dream bigger, imagine deeper, and create more freely. The future of creativity is not defined by machines. It is defined by what humans choose to do with them. It is defined by the questions we ask, the ideas we pursue, and the meaning we seek. And as we move towards the closing reflections of this journey, one truth becomes clear. A creative life is not determined by tools, technology, or talent. It is determined by intention, by curiosity, by the willingness to imagine. The creative life. Creativity is more than a skill, more than a process, more than a collection of techniques, strategies, or theories. It is a way of being, a way of seeing the world, a way of moving through life with curiosity, attention, and openness. A creative life is not limited to artists or scientists or innovators. It belongs to anyone who chooses to look at the world with a sense of possibility. A creative life begins with attention, the simple act of noticing small details, noticing the patterns of daily life, noticing the feelings that arise within you, noticing the quiet shifts in the world around you. Attention is the doorway through which creativity enters. When the mind pays close attention, it begins to see connections that were previously hidden. It begins to sense opportunities for imagination. It discovers meaning in the ordinary. Now, if you would like, take a slow breath and allow your eyes, even if closed, to soften. Attention often deepens when the body feels unhurried. A creative life also involves intention, the choice to engage with ideas rather than let them pass by, the choice to explore possibilities rather than dismiss them, the choice to try, even when doubt whispers in the background. Intention transforms creativity from a passive capacity into an active practice. It invites the mind to participate in its own evolution. Creativity grows when we allow ourselves to be beginners, when we let ourselves experiment without fear of failure, when we understand that skill develops through repetition, curiosity, and gentle persistence. A creative life is not built on perfection. It is built on exploration, on trying again, on learning to play with ideas rather than control them. If it feels natural, allow your shoulders to settle gently downward. A softened posture helps ideas flow with ease. Curiosity is the emotional heartbeat of a creative life. It encourages us to ask questions, to investigate the world, to wonder about things we do not yet understand. Curiosity dissolves boredom. It transforms routine into opportunity. It makes even the smallest moments feel alive with potential. This curiosity does not need to be dramatic. It can be as simple as noticing how light moves across a room, wondering why a particular emotion arose, exploring a new subject for a few minutes. Creativity grows in these quiet acts of noticing and wondering. Over time, they reshape the brain's pathways, strengthening the circuits that support imagination. A creative life also embraces vulnerability, sharing ideas, expressing emotions, creating something new, or stepping outside familiar boundaries all require courage. Creativity asks us to reveal parts of ourselves that may feel fragile. But within this vulnerability lies authenticity, and authenticity fuels creativity more strongly than anything else. If you wish, take a gentle breath and let the exhale soften the jaw. Vulnerability feels less intimidating when the body feels safe. A creative life honors rest. Creativity is not a constant upward motion. It requires cycles, expansion and retreat, effort and pause, insight and incubation. Rest allows the subconscious mind to integrate ideas. It provides space for thoughts to reorganize. It softens internal pressure and invites new perspectives to emerge naturally. Many breakthroughs arise not from intense concentration, but from relaxed openness. A quiet walk, a still moment, a night of sleep. Creativity needs these moments of spaciousness. Community also plays an important role. Sharing ideas with others creates a vibrant environment where creativity can flourish. Conversations spark insight. Collaboration introduces new angles. Constructive feedback strengthens ideas. A creative life becomes richer when it is connected to others who value imagination, curiosity, and growth. If it feels comfortable, breathe softly into the lungs and feel a sense of calm expand through the body. Creative connection often begins with emotional presence. Mindset shapes the creative journey. A fixed mindset sees creativity as something you either have or lack. A growth mindset sees creativity as a skill that develops with practice. A flexible mindset understands that not every idea will succeed, and that this is part of the process. A compassionate mindset allows the mind to move freely without harsh self-judgment. These mindsets create the psychological foundation of a creative life. Over time, creativity becomes integrated into every aspect of living. It influences how you solve problems, how you communicate, how you interpret challenges, how you express yourself. Creativity becomes a lens through which you view the world. It turns life into an ongoing exploration. If you would like, let your breath rise softly through the nose and release gently. A creative life unfolds one breath, one moment, one spark at a time. The creative life is built on small choices, choosing to be curious, choosing to pay attention, choosing to experiment, choosing to reflect, choosing to express. These small choices accumulate, creating a path of imagination and insight. Creativity deepens when you trust your inner sense of direction, when you follow the subtle pull towards certain ideas or questions, when you honor the moments of inspiration that appear unexpectedly, when you allow yourself to be guided by both intuition and thought. Ultimately, creativity is an expression of the human spirit. It is the way we shape meaning out of experience, the way we transform inner life into outer form, the way we connect with others through story, emotion, and imagination, the way we participate in the evolution of culture and knowledge. A creative life is not about producing masterpieces. It is about living with awareness, living with curiosity, living with openness, living with the willingness to explore the unexplored corners of your own mind. Take one last slow breath if it feels right. Feel the quiet sense of possibility that creativity brings. A reminder that your mind carries within it a vast landscape of potential. A reminder that creativity is not something distant or exclusive. It is part of you. It always has been. The creative life is a continuous unfolding, a journey without a final destination, a practice of seeing, imagining and shaping the world with intention. And every moment offers a new beginning. Closing reflections. Creativity is often described as a spark, but in truth it is more like a quiet flame, a steady glow within the mind. It brightens when the world feels open. It dims when pressure grows too heavy. But it never disappears. It waits, it listens, it gathers strength in silence, and it returns when the mind remembers to make space for it. You have traveled through the science, psychology, evolution, philosophy, and practice of creativity, through the networks of the brain, through the emotional landscapes that shape ideas, through the ancient roots of human imagination, through the future where human and artificial creativity evolve together. And now we arrive at the still point where all of this knowledge gathers, a place where creativity becomes personal again, a part of your own inner life. If you want to, take a slow breath and feel your body settle into its natural rhythm. Creativity often feels clearer when the breath is soft and unhurried. The most important truth is simple. Creativity is not rare. It is not selective. It is not reserved for a chosen few. It belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. It lives in the structure of your brain, in the movements of your thoughts, in the emotions that flow through your heart, and in the stories your life has given you. Creativity grows whenever you give it attention, whenever you allow yourself to be curious, whenever you let your mind wander, whenever you try something new, whenever you ask, what if? Every time you imagine a possibility, no matter how small, you are practicing the art of creativity. If you would like, let your shoulders relax gently downward. These moments of softness help ideas rise with ease. The world often teaches people to silence their creativity, to follow strict formulas, to avoid risks, to stay within familiar boundaries. But creativity thrives outside those boundaries. It grows in uncertainty. It grows in exploration. It grows when you allow yourself to experiment, even if the experiment feels imperfect or incomplete. The creative mind does not demand perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for patience. It asks for openness. It asks for the willingness to try again. Creativity also emerges from the ways you care for your mind. Moments of rest, moments of silence, moments when you step away from noise and return to yourself. These pauses give your subconscious mind the chance to connect ideas that your conscious mind cannot yet see. They allow insights to form quietly beneath the surface. If the thought is pleasant, feel the breath move in and out with ease. Creativity often deepens in these gentle pauses. Across the sweep of human history, creativity has been the force that shaped our evolution. It built the first tools. It sparked the first stories. It carved symbols into stone and painted colors onto cave walls. It helped humans understand themselves and the world around them. Creativity is woven into our DNA. It is the thread that connects ancient minds to modern minds, generation after generation. And now it continues in you. Your ideas are part of this lineage. Your questions, your experiments, your attempts, your expressions. They all contribute to the ongoing story of human imagination. There is no idea too small, no curiosity too quiet, no interest too obscure. Every creative impulse adds something to the world. If it feels comfortable, let your breath settle into a slow, steady flow. This gentle rhythm mirrors the natural rhythm of creative thought. Remember that creativity does not require mastery. It requires engagement. It requires willingness. It requires the courage to begin. Each idea you explore strengthens the neural pathways that support imagination. Each challenge you face teaches resilience. Each moment of wonder expands your sense of possibility. A creative life is not measured by the number of finished projects or public achievements. It is measured by the richness of your inner world, by the connections you make, by the meaning you find, by the curiosity you nurture. Creativity is not separate from everyday life. It lives in conversation, in problem solving, in planning, in observing, in dreaming, in feeling, in questioning. It is part of your daily experience even when you do not notice it. If you want, breathe softly in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let the breath feel warm and easy. Creativity often reveals itself in moments when the mind feels calm and receptive. As this journey draws to a close, carry with you the understanding that creativity is not something you must search for outside yourself. It is already present. It is within you at every moment. It grows with your curiosity. It strengthens with your attention. It unfolds with your willingness to explore your own mind. You do not need permission to be creative. You do not need the perfect idea. You do not need certainty. You only need openness, a gentle willingness to imagine, a small step toward exploration. Creativity is the way the mind touches possibility. It is the way the human spirit expresses its depth. It is the way we connect to something larger than ourselves. You are part of that connection, part of that lineage, part of that unfolding. Take one final slow breath if it feels right. Feel the quiet potential that lives within you, the soft energy of imagination, the gentle pulse of ideas waiting to take shape. Creativity is not something you find. It is something you remember, something you return to, something that has always belonged to you. And it will continue to grow, one idea at a time, for as long as you choose to explore.